Welcome to the Reality Revolution. Today I will continue a series I've been doing based on a book called A Series of Lessons by Yogi Ramacharaka, the pseudonym for William Walker Atkinson, one of the original New Thought authors that explored the law of attraction. Check out my previous episodes. Lesson 1 is on the I, and Lesson 2, the ego's mental tools. Lesson 3 is called the expansion of the self. And so this particular lesson is important in understanding an expansion beyond the I that we have been teaching so far. So let us begin with a consideration of the instruments of the I and the material through which the I works. The first two lessons, we've endeavored to bring the candidate to a realization in consciousness of the reality of the I, and to enable him to distinguish between self and its sheaths, physical and mental. In the present lesson, we will call your attention to the relationship of the I to the universal I, and endeavor to give you a grander self, transcending personality, and the little self that we are so apt to regard as the I. So let us realize the material with which and through the I works. Let us realize that the physical body of man or woman is identical in substance with all other forms of matter, and that its atoms are continually changing and being replaced, the material being drawn from the great storehouse of matter, and that there is a oneness of matter underlying all apparent differences of form and substance. And then let us realize that the vital energy, or prana, that man uses in his life is but a portion of the great universal energy which permeates everything and everywhere, the portion being used by us at any particular moment being drawn from the universal supply, and again passing out from us into the great ocean of force or energy. And then let us realize that even the mind, which is so close to the real self that is often mistaken for it, even that wonderful thing, thought, is but a portion of the universal mind, the highest emanation of the absolute beneath the plane of spirit, and that the mind, substance, or chitta, that we are using this moment is not ours separately and distinctly, but is simply a portion from the great universal supply, which is constant and unchangeable. Let us realize that even this thing we feel pulsing within us, which is so closely bound up with the spirit as to be almost inseparable from it, that which we call life, is but a bit of that great life principle that pervades the universe, and which cannot be added to nor subtracted from. When we have realized these things and have begun to feel our relation in these particulars to the one great emanation of the Absolute, then we may begin to grasp the idea of the oneness of spirit and the relation of the I to every other I, and the merging of the self into the one great self, which is not the extinction of individuality as some may have supposed, but the enlargement and extension of the individual consciousness until it takes in the whole. We call your attention to the yogi teachings concerning akasa, or matter, and show you that all forms of what we know as matter are but different forms of manifestation of the principle called akasa, or what Western scientists call ether. This ether, or akasa, is the finest, thinnest, and most tenuous form of matter. In fact, it is matter in its ultimate or fundamental form. The different forms of what we call matter being but manifestation of this akasa or ether, the apparent difference resulting from different rates of vibration, etc. We mention this fact here merely to bring clearly before your mind the fact of universality of matter, to the end that you may realize that each and every particle of your physical body is but a portion of this great principle of the universe, fresh from the great storehouse, and just about returning to it again. For the atoms of the body are constantly changing. That which appears as your flesh today may have been part of a plant a few days before, and may be part of some other living thing a few days hence. Constant change is going on, and what is yours today was someone else's yesterday, and still another's tomorrow. You do not own one atom of matter personally. It is all a part of the common supply, the stream flowing through you and through all life, on and on forever. And so it is with the vital energy that you are using every moment of your life. You are constantly drawing upon the great universal supply of prana, then using what is given to you, allowing the force to pass on to assume some other form. It is the property of all, and all you can do is to use what you need and allow it to pass on. There is but one force or energy, and that is to be found everywhere at all times. And even the great principle, mind substance, is under the same law. It is hard for us to realize this. We are so apt to think of our mental operations as distinctly our own, something that belongs to us personally, that it is difficult for us to realize that mind substance is a universal principle, just as matter or energy, and that we are but drawing upon the universal supply in our mental operations. And more than this, the particular portion of mind substance that we are using, although separated from the mind substance used by other individuals by a thin wall of the very finest kind of matter, is really in touch with other apparently separated minds, and with the universal mind of which it forms a part. Just as is the matter of which our physical bodies are composed really in touch with all matter, and just as the vital force used by us really in touch with all energy, so is our mind substance really in touch with all mind substance. It is as if the ego or I in its progress were moving through great oceans of matter, energy or mind substance, making use of each which it needed and immediately surrounded it, and leaving each behind as it moved on through the great volume of the ocean. This illustration is clumsy, but it may bring to your consciousness a realization that the I is the only thing that is really yours, unchangeable and unaltered, and all that the rest is merely that portion of the universal supply that you draw to yourself for the wants of the moment. It may also bring more clearly before your mind the great unity of things. It may enable you to see things as a whole rather than as separated parts. Remember, you, the I, are the only real thing about and around you. All that has permanence and matter, force, and even mind substance are but for your instruments for use and expression. There are great oceans of each surrounding the eye as it moves along. It is well for you also to bear in mind the universality of life. All of the universe is alive, vibrating and pulsing with life and energy and motion. There is nothing dead in the universe. Life is everywhere and always accompanied by intelligence. There is no such thing as a dead, unintelligent universe. Instead of being atoms of life floating in a sea of death, we are atoms of life surrounded by an ocean of life, pulsating, moving, thinking, and living. Every atom of what we call matter is alive. It has energy or force with it, and is always accompanied by intelligence and life. Look around us as we will at the animal world, at the plant world, yes, even the world of minerals, and we see life, all alive and having intelligence. When we are able to bring this conception into the realm of actual consciousness, when we are able not only to intellectually accept this fact, but to even go further and feel and be conscious of this universal life on all sides, then we are well on the road to attaining cosmic consciousness. But all these things are but steps leading up to the realization of the oneness in spirit on the part of the individual. Gradually, there dawns upon him the realization that there is a unity in the manifestation of spirit from the Absolute, a unity with itself and a unity with the Absolute. All this manifestation of spirit on the part of the Absolute, all this begetting of divine children, was in the nature of a single act rather than a series of acts, if we may be permitted to speak of the manifestation as an act. Each eye is a center of consciousness in this great ocean of spirit. Each is a real self, apparent, separate from the others and from its source. But the separation is only apparent in both cases, for there is the closest bond of union between the eyes of the universes of universes. Each is knit to the other in the closest bond of union, and each is still attached to the Absolute by spiritual filaments. If we may use the term, in time we shall grow more conscious of this mutual relationship of the sheaths are outgrown and cast aside, and in the end we will be withdrawn into the Absolute, shall return to the mansion of the Father. It is of the highest importance to the developing soul to unfold into a realization of this relationship and unity, for when this conception is once fully established, the soul is enabled to rise above certain lower planes and is free from the operation of certain laws that bind the undeveloped soul. Therefore, the yogi teachers are constantly leading the candidates toward this goal, first by this path and then by that one, giving them different glimpses of the desired point, until finally the student finds a path best fitted for his feet, and he moves along straight to the mark, and throwing aside the confining bonds that have proved so irksome, he cries aloud for joy at his newfound freedom. The following exercises and mental drills are intended to aid the candidate in his work of growing into realization of the relationship with the whole being and life. So these are the mental drills. If you've used the other episodes, some of them are meditational in orientation. Some of these are asking you to ponder deep questions, and there is a affirmation at the end. I'll probably repeat it a few times. But number one, realize that all matter is one at the last, that the real underlying substance of matter is akasa or ether, and that all the varying forms evident to our senses are but modifications and grosser forms of that underlying principle. Realize that by known chemical processes, all forms of matter known to us, or rather, all combinations resulting in forms, may be resolved into their original elements, and that these elements are merely akasa in different states of vibration. Let the idea of the oneness of the visible universe sink deeply into your mind until it becomes fixed there. The erroneous conception of diversity in the material world must be replaced by the consciousness of unity, oneness at the last. In spite of the appearance of variety and manifold forms, you must grow to see behind the world of forms of matter and see the great principle of matter back of, within and under it all. You must grow to feel this as well as to intellectually see it. So meditate over the last mentioned truths and follow the matter still further. Understand the analysis of matter, showing it fading away into force or energy until the dividing line is lost and matter merges into energy or force, showing them both to be the same thing, matter being a grosser form of energy or force. This idea should be impressed upon the understanding in order that the complete edifice of the knowing of oneness may be complete in all of its parts. Number 3, consider how one form of energy may be transformed into another, and so on around the circle, the one principle producing the entire chain of appearances. Realize that the energy within you by which you move and act is but one of the forms of this great principle of energy with which the universe is filled, and that you may draw to you the required energy from the great universal supply. But above all, endeavor to grasp the idea of the oneness pervading the world of energy or force or motion. See it in its entirety rather than its apparent separateness. These steps may appear somewhat tedious and useless, but take our word for it. They are all helps in fitting the mind to grasp the idea of the oneness of all. Each step is important and renders the next higher one more easily attained. In this mental drill, it will be well to mentally picture the universe in perpetual motion, everything in motion, all matter is moving and changing its forms and manifesting the energy within it. Suns and worlds rush through space, their particles constantly changing and moving. Chemical composition and decomposition is constant and unceasing. Everywhere the work of building up, breaking down is going on. New combinations of atoms and worlds are constantly being formed and dissolved. And after considering this oneness of the principle of energy, reflect through all these changes of the form of the I, the real self, the you, stand unchanged and unharmed, eternal, invincible, indestructible, invulnerable, real, and constant. Among this changing world of forms and force, you above it all, and it revolves around you, the Spirit. So take a few moments just to consider this idea. I want you to imagine the great principle of the universe in motion. Meditate on this, that all matter is moving and changing its forms, manifesting the energy within it. Suns and worlds rush through space, their particles constantly changing and moving. Chemical composition and decomposition constant, unceasing. You are above it all, and it revolves around you and about you, the Spirit. Number 4, realize that mind is back of all this great exhibition of energy and force that you've been considering, and you'll be ready to consider the oneness of mind. And number 5, realize that there is a great world of mind substance, or in a universal mind, which is at the disposal of the I. All thought is the product of the I's use of the mind substance, its tool and instrument. Realize that this ocean of mind is entire and whole, and that the I may draw freely from it. Realize that you have this great ocean of mind at your command. When you unfold sufficiently to use it, realize that mind is back of and underneath all of the world of form and names and action, and in that sense, all is mind. Although still higher in the scale than even mind are you, the real self, the manifestation of the Absolute. Just ponder this for a moment. Number 6, now realize your identity with and relationship to all of life. Look around you at life in all its forms, from the lowest to the highest, all being exhibitions of the great principle of life, in operation along different stages of the path. Scorn not the humblest forms, but look behind the form and see the reality, life. Feel yourself a part of the great universal life. Let your thoughts sink to the depths of the ocean and realize your kinship with the life back of the forms dwelling there. Do not confound the forms, often hideous from your personal point of view, with the principle behind them. Look at the plant life and the animal life and seek to see behind the veil of form into the real life behind and underneath the form. Learn to feel your life throbbing and thrilling with the life principle in these other forms and in the forms of your own race. Gaze into the starry skies and see there the numerous suns and worlds, all people with life in some of its myriad forms, and feel your kinship to it. If you can grasp this thought and consciousness, you will find yourself at a one-ment with this whirling worlds. And instead of feeling small and insignificant by comparison, you will be conscious of an expansion of self until you feel that in those circling worlds is a part of yourself, that you are there also, while standing upon the earth, that you are akin to all parts of the universe. Nay, more than that, they are much your home as it is the spot upon which you are standing. You will find sweeping upon you a sense of consciousness that the universe is your home, not merely a part of it, as you had previously thought. You will experience a sense of greatness and broadness and grandness such as you have never dreamed of. You'll begin to realize at least part of your divine inheritance, and to know indeed that you are a child of the infinite, the very essence of your divine parent being in the fibers of your being. At such times of realization, one becomes conscious of what lies before the soul in its upward path, and how small the greatest prizes that earth has to offer are when compared to some of these things before the soul, as seen by the eyes of the spiritual mind in moments of clear vision. You must not dispute with these visions of the greatness of the soul, but must treat them hospitably, for they are your very own, coming to you from the regions of your spiritual mind, which are unfolding into consciousness. Number 7. The highest step in this dawning consciousness of the oneness of all is the one in which is realized that there is but one reality, and at the same time, same sense of consciousness that the I is in that reality. It is most difficult to express this thought in words, for it is something that must be felt rather than seen by the intellect. Now, there may be multiple parallel realities, but there is the one reality of the I that they are discussing here. When the soul realizes that the spirit within it is, at the last, the only real part of it, and that the absolute and its manifestation as spirit is the only real thing in the universe, a great step has been taken. But there's still one higher step to be taken before the full sense of the oneness and reality comes to us. That step is the one in which we realize the identity of the I with the great I of the universe. The mystery of the manifestation of the absolute in the form of the spirit is veiled from us. The mind confesses its ability to penetrate behind the veil, shielding the absolute from view, although it will give us a report of its being conscious of the presence of the absolute just at the edge of the boundary. But the highest region of the spiritual mind, when explored by the advanced souls who are well along the path, reports that it sees beyond the apparent separation of spirit from spirit and realizes that there is but one reality of spirit, and that all the eyes are really but different views of that one center of consciousness upon the surface of the one great I, the center of which is the absolute itself. This certainly penetrates the whole region of the spiritual mind and gives us all the messages of oneness of the spirit, just as the intellect satisfies us with the message of oneness of matter, energy, and mind. The idea of oneness permeates all planes of life. The sense of the reality of the I that is apparent to you in the moments of your clearest mental vision is really the reflection of the sense of reality underlying the whole. It is the consciousness of the whole manifesting through your point center of consciousness. The advanced student or initiate finds his consciousness gradually enlarging until it realizes its identity with the whole. He realizes under all the forms and names of the visible world there is to be found one life, one force, one substance, one existence, one reality, one. And instead of his experiencing any sense of the loss of identity or individuality, he becomes conscious of an enlargement, of an expansion of individuality or identity. Instead of feeling himself absorbed in the whole, he feels that he is spreading out and embracing the whole. This is most hard to express in words, for there are no words to fit the conception. And all that we can hope to do is to start into motion by means of our words, the vibrations that will find a response in the minds of those who listen to the words, to the end that they will experience the consciousness which will bring its own understanding. This consciousness cannot be transmitted by words proceeding from the intellect, but vibrations may be set up that will prepare the mind to receive the message from its own higher planes. Even in the early stages of this dawning consciousness, one is enabled to identify the real part of himself with the real part of all the other forms of life that pass before his notice. In every other man, in every animal, in every plant, in every mineral, he sees behind the sheath and form of appearance an evidence of the presence of the spirit, which is akin to his own spirit. Yea, more than akin, for the two are one. He sees himself in all forms of life, in all times, in all places. He realizes the real self is everywhere, present and everlasting, and that the life within himself is also within the universe, in everything, for there is nothing dead in the universe. And all life in all of its varying phases is simply the one life, held, used, and enjoyed in common by all. Each ego is a center of consciousness in this great ocean of life, and while apparently separate and distinct, is yet really in touch with the whole, with every apparent part. It is not our intention in this lesson to go into the details of this great mystery of life, or to recite the comparatively little of the truth that most advanced teachers and masters have handed down. This is not the place for it. It belongs in the subject of Gnani Yoga rather than Raja Yoga, and we touch upon it here not for the purpose of trying to explain the scientific side of it to you, but merely in order that your minds may be led to take up the idea and gradually manifest in it conscious realization. There is quite a difference between scientific, intellectual teaching of Gnani Yoga, whereby the metaphysical and scientific sides of the yogi teachings are presented to the minds of the students in a logical scientific manner, and the methods of Raja Yoga, in which the candidate is led by degrees to a consciousness outside of mere intellectual belief of his real nature and power. We are following the latter plan, for this is a course in Raja Yoga. We are aiming to present the matter of presentation of the scientific side of the yoga teachings, but it will be found in time that the effect has been that the mind of the student has undergone a change from the absorbing of the idea of the oneness of life and expansion of the self. The candidate is urged not to be in too much of a hurry. Development must be forced. Read what we have written and practice the mental drills we have given. Even if they may appear trifling and childish to some of you, we know that they will do for you, and you will agree with us in time. Make haste slowly. You will find that the mind will work out the matter, even though you be engaged in your ordinary work and have forgotten the subject for the time, the greater portion of mental work is done in this way. While you are busy with something else, or even asleep, for the subconscious portion of the mind works along the lines pointed out and performs its task. As we have said, the purpose of this lesson is to bring you in the way of the unfoldment of consciousness rather than to teach you the details of the scientific side of the yogi teaching. Development is the keynote of Raja Yoga, and the reason that we wish to develop this sense of the reality of the I and the expansion of the self at this place is that hereby you may assert your mastery over matter, energy, and mind. Before you may mount your throne as king, you must fully realize in consciousness that you are the reality in this world of appearances. You must realize that you, the real you, are not only existent but real, and that you are in touch with all that is real, and that the roots of your being are grounded in the absolute itself. You must realize that instead of being a separate atom of reality, isolated and fixed in a narrow space, you are a center of consciousness in the whole of reality, and the universe of universes is your home, and that your center of consciousness might be proved and moved on to point of trillions of miles from the earth, which distance would be as nothing in space, and still you, the awakened soul, would be just as much at home there as here. That even while you are here, your influence extends far out into space. Your real state, which will be revealed to you gradually throughout the ages, is so great and grand that your mind in its present state of development cannot grasp even the faint reflection of that glory. We wish you to try to form at least a faint idea of your real state of being in order that you may control the lower principles by the force of your awakened will, which will depends upon your degree of consciousness of the real self. As man grows in understanding and consciousness of the real self, so does his ability to use his will grow. Will is the attribute of the real self. It is well that his great realization of the real self brings with it love for all life and kindness, for it were not so, the will that comes to him who grows into a realization of his real being could be used to the great hurt of those of the race who had not progressed so far. Their relative hurt, we mean, for in the end, at the last, no soul is ever really hurt. But the dawning power brings with it greater love and kindness, and the higher the soul mounts, the more it is filled with the higher ideals, and the more it does throw from the lower animal attributes. It is true that some soul grows into a consciousness of their real nature without an understanding of what it all means, may commit the error of using the awakened will for selfish ends, as may be seen in the cases of the black magicians spoken of in the occult writings, and also in the cases of well-known characters in history and modern life, who manifest an enormous will which they misuse. All of this class of people of great will have stumbled or grown blindly into a consciousness or partial consciousness of their real nature, but lack the restraining influence of the higher teachings. But such misuse of the will brings pain and unrest to the user, and he is eventually driven into the right road. We do not expect our students to grasp fully this idea of the expansion of the self. Even the highest grasp it only partially. But until you get glimmering of this consciousness, you will not be able to progress far on the path of Raja Yoga. You must understand what you are before you are able to use the power that lies dormant within you. You must realize that you are the master before you can claim the powers of the master and expect to have your commands obeyed. So bear patiently with us, your teachers, while we set before you the lessons to be learned, the tasks to be performed, The road is long and is rough in places. The feet may become tired and bruised, but the reward is great. And there are resting places along the path. Be not discouraged if your progress seems slow, for the soul must unfold naturally as does the flower, without haste, without force. And be not dismayed nor affrighted if you occasionally catch a glimpse of your higher self. As MC says in her notes on the light on the path, to have seen thy soul in its bloom is to have obtained a momentary glimpse in thyself of the transfiguration which shall eventually make thee more than man. To recognize is to achieve the great task of gazing upon the blazing light without dropping the eyes and not falling back in terror, as though before some ghastly phantom. This happens to some, and so when the victory is all but won, it is lost. Peace be with thee. Now, that was a quick lesson, but it's important as a third step, and the next one will be mental control. The affirmation for this lesson is as follows. There is but one ultimate form of matter, one ultimate form of energy, one ultimate form of mind. Matter proceeds from energy, and energy from mind, and all are an emanation of the Absolute, threefold in appearance but one in substance. There is but one life, and that permeates the universe, manifesting in various forms but being at the last but one. My body is one with universal matter. My energy and vital force is one with the universal energy. My mind is one with the universal mind. My life is one with the universal life. The Absolute has expressed and manifested itself in spirit, which is the real I, overshadowing and embracing all the apparently separate I's. I feel my identity with spirit and realize the oneness of all reality. I feel my unity with all spirit and my union through spirit with the Absolute. I realize that I am an expression and manifestation of the Absolute, and that its very essence is within me. I am filled with divine love. I am filled with divine power. I am filled with divine wisdom. I am conscious of identity in spirit, in substance, and in nature with one reality. There is but one ultimate form of matter, one ultimate form of energy, one ultimate form of mind. Matter proceeds from energy, and energy from mind, and all are an emanation of the Absolute, threefold in appearance but one in substance. There is but one life, and that permeates the universe, manifesting in various forms, but being at the last but one. My body is one with the universal matter. My energy and vital force is one with the universal energy. My mind is one with the universal mind. My life is one with the universal life. The Absolute has expressed and manifested itself in spirit, which is the real I, overshadowing and embracing all the apparently separate I's. I feel my identity with spirit and realize the oneness of all reality. I feel my unity with all spirit and my union through spirit with the Absolute. I realize that I am an expression and manifestation of the Absolute, and its very essence is within me. I am filled with divine love. I am filled with divine power, and I am filled with divine wisdom. I am consciously of identity in spirit, in substance, and in nature with the one reality. There is but one ultimate form of matter, one ultimate form of energy, one ultimate form of mind. Matter proceeds from energy, and energy from mind, and all are an emanation of the Absolute, threefold in appearance but one in substance. There is but one life, and that permeates the universe, manifesting in various forms but being at the last but one. My body is one with universal matter. My energy and vital force is one with the universal energy. My mind is one with the universal mind. My life is one with the universal life. The Absolute has expressed and manifested itself in spirit, which is the real I, overshadowing and embracing all the apparently separate I's. I feel my identity with Spirit and realize the oneness of all reality. I feel my unity with all Spirit and my union through Spirit with the Absolute. I realize that I am an expression and manifestation of the Absolute, and that its very essence is within me. I am filled with divine love. I am filled with divine power. I am filled with divine wisdom. I am conscious of identity in spirit, in substance, and in nature with one reality. There is but one ultimate form of matter, one ultimate form of energy, one ultimate form of mind. Matter proceeds from energy, and energy from mind, and all are an emanation of the Absolute, threefold in appearance but one in substance. There is but one life, and that permeates the universe, manifesting in various forms, but being at the last but one. My body is one with the universal matter. My energy and vital force is one with the universal energy. My mind is one with the universal mind. My life is one with the universal life. The Absolute has expressed and manifested itself in spirit, which is the real I, overshadowing and embracing all the apparently separate I's. I feel my identity with Spirit and realize the oneness of all reality. I feel my unity with all Spirit and my union through Spirit with the Absolute. I realize that I am an expression and manifestation of the Absolute, and its very essence is within me. I am filled with divine love. I am filled with divine power, and I am filled with divine wisdom. I am consciously of identity in spirit, in substance, and in nature with the one reality. There is but one ultimate form of matter, one ultimate form of energy, one ultimate form of mind. Matter proceeds from energy, and energy from mind, and all are an emanation of the Absolute, threefold in appearance but one in substance. There is but one life, and that permeates the universe, manifesting in various forms but being at the last but one. My body is one with universal matter. My energy and vital force is one with the universal energy. My mind is one with the universal mind. My life is one with the universal life. The Absolute has expressed and manifested itself in spirit, which is the real I, overshadowing and embracing all the apparently separate I's. I feel my identity with Spirit and realize the oneness of all reality. I feel my unity with all Spirit and my union through Spirit with the Absolute. I realize that I am an expression and manifestation of the Absolute, and that its very essence is within me. I am filled with divine love. I am filled with divine power. I am filled with divine wisdom. I am conscious of identity in spirit, in substance, and in nature with one reality. There is but one ultimate form of matter, one ultimate form of energy, one ultimate form of mind. Matter proceeds from energy, and energy from mind, and all are an emanation of the Absolute, threefold in appearance but one in substance. There is but one life, and that permeates the universe, manifesting in various forms, but being at the last but one. My body is one with the universal matter. My energy and vital force is one with the universal energy. My mind is one with the universal mind. My life is one with the universal life. The Absolute has expressed and manifested itself in spirit, which is the real I, overshadowing and embracing all the apparently separate I's. I feel my identity with Spirit and realize the oneness of all reality. I feel my unity with all Spirit and my union through Spirit with the Absolute. I realize that I am an expression and manifestation of the Absolute, and its very essence is within me. I am filled with divine love. I am filled with divine power, and I am filled with divine wisdom. I am consciously of identity in spirit, in substance, and in nature with the one reality. Hopefully this resonates with you. I know that some of these lessons seem simple, but there's a process in this, in understanding your power and achieving greater mental control and control over your subconscious. And there are steps in these lessons that have power. These affirmations will give you greater power once you embrace them. I know, because I have been there, that lessons like this can be boring or annoying, and you want to get to the bigger parts. But this is a step-by-step process, and if you follow this step, you're going to step into a greater understanding of yourself, and as explained here, a greater power. And once you have this vital force, you have access to the power of the universe. It's pretty amazing. So keep an eye out for the next lesson coming soon, which is mental control, the fourth lesson in a series of lessons in Raja Yoga. Thank you for sharing in these lessons. I hope that they're helping. If you're getting anything out of it, put something in the comments, and I'll try to speed up each lesson that I put out. I just want to know if it's resonating with you, if it's helping you in any way. So I hope that it does. And for any transcripts of all episodes of The Reality Revolution, check out therealityrevolution.com. For coaching, you can go to advancedsuccessinstitute.com. Thank you, and welcome to The Reality Revolution.